Did you know that America is a burger-loving nation? In the US, people consume over 50 billion burgers a year, or on an average 3 burgers a week. And that is according to MSNBC.com. So today I'm going to use the metaphor of how a good burger is like a good introduction and conclusion in your speech. I am Professor Bachner, and in this quick tutorial, I'm going to give you some tips about introductions and conclusions in your speech. So a good speech is like a good hamburger, right? The bottom bun, I'm going to use it as an example of an introduction of a speech. It holds the burger together. Now, the filling, which is the meat patty, the cheese, the tomatoes, the toppings, that is considered the body of the speech. And finally, the top bun is considered the conclusion of a speech, right? Now, if you think about a burger in whole, the best part of a speech or the best part of a burger is the filling, right? The meat, the cheese, the ingredients. But you do need the bun, the introduction and the conclusion to hold the entire burger together and to have a good experience. Okay. So before I explain the introduction, I want to start off explaining with one of my favorite burgers, an In-N-Out burger. If you are a local or have visited California, you know that In-N-Out burgers are very popular in California. I don't know. I think it's just the freshness of it and the fact that the menu is just so simple that makes this burger so good. Although the lines do get a little long waiting for this hamburger. Okay, so in an introduction to a speech, we have a couple parts. The first part that you should do in an introduction is grab the audience's attention. So you should start with a quote, a startling statement of fact, a brief story, a factual or hypothetical illustration, a joke, or any other rhetorical device that maybe your textbook or other notes suggest to start up a speech, right? So I gave you guys an interesting statistic about how much we eat burgers as Americans to grab you into this tutorial. Okay, so attention getter, how are you going to grab your audience into your speech? The next part of an introduction is your thesis statement. And the thesis statement is just one quick sentence stating what your topic is about. So today I'll talk to you about hamburgers in the United States, or today I'm going to discuss to you my 3 favorite burgers that I like to eat. Just one quick sentence about what your speech is about. Not like in English where thesis statements are a little bit more drawn out in English. In public speaking, it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. The next part of your introduction is the significance statement. And the significance statement is basically, how are you going to grab your audience to listen? It's almost persuasive. What are you going to say to grab your audience's attention to your speech, right? So many of you guys probably perked up listening to a speech about burgers, right? Maybe many of you guys share my same kind of connection to burgers. You really love them. You really enjoy them. They bring you good memories, right? But what if you're a vegan? What if you're on a diet? Or what if you're not familiar with this American cuisine because you're an international student? As a public speaker, I need to give a couple statements or comments of how my speech could connect and relate to everyone. Why should everyone listen to your speech? The next part of an introduction is the credibility. And the credibility basically establishes your connection or your expertise to the topic, right? So I may work at a fast food joint, or I may be studying nutrition or, the food industry in my business class, right? Or I just might be a fan of burgers and really research the topic. So in credibility, you basically just want to explain what is your connection to the topic. And then finally is the overview statement, right? So an overview statement is basically a quick sentence stating the main points of the speech, giving a preview to what your speech is about. So if I said something similar to, today I'm going to talk to you about In-N-Out burgers, Five Guys burgers, and McDonald's hamburgers. and, you know, kind of the pros and cons of each burger, that's giving me that's giving my audience a quick sentence about what my speech is about. Now, a couple other tips in an introduction. In introduction, it doesn't necessarily have to follow this pattern, but usually it is universal that you follow this pattern in an introduction. In an attention getter, thesis, significance, credibility, and then providing your main point. It's like a nice organizational flow. Your introduction doesn't need to be too long, but it does need some substance in it. So it should be, I would say, approximately 30 seconds. And going back to my burger metaphor, right? The introduction is the start. The introduction is the foundation of your speech, right? So similar to a burger, you need the bottom bun so you could build up on the speech. You could build up on the toppings in the burger. So this is why an introduction is important in your speech. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the body, but the body is the main part of the speech, right? So here I have an example of a Five Guys burger, which many of you are familiar with. Five Guys, the first Five Guys was in Arlington, Virginia, so our backyards. And I don't know, I like Five Guys burgers because you could build it as you want. And it's just like, it just tastes like the classic backyard burger to me. Okay. So if you think about a Five Guys burger, the best part is all the toppings that you get to pick on it. If you want bacon, if you want cheese, if you want tomatoes, if you want, I guess the works is when you want everything in it. And in the body of a speech, this is where you elaborate on your main points. This is where you give a variety of supporting materials. And supporting materials could be statistics, explanations, testimonies, illustrations, and other devices that your textbook suggest. Right. An important thing to remember is to make sure that you cite your supporting materials. You should keep the main points of your speech to 3 to 5 main points. You don't want to have too little, but you don't want to have too much. And then you also want to work on effective transitional phrases between each main points. I would use the metaphor of that's like a condiment, right? Like the ketchup kind of breaks things up, or the mustard kind of breaks things up in a speech, okay? So the body is the main part, right, of the speech. The burger, the burger patty and the toppings are the main part of the speech, but the bun, intro, conclusion, is what holds it all together. So finally, we end with our conclusion, and you may recognize this burger. It's the classic McDonald's cheeseburger. And my connection actually to McDonald's too is that I went to Cal State San Bernardino, and that is the hometown or the first McDonald's to open. If you're actually interested in the story of McDonald's, I would also suggest the film, The Founders, right? The Founders. Michael Keaton stars in it, but that's just a side note. Okay, so what do we do in a conclusion? 2 parts of a conclusion, review and a finality. So the review of a conclusion is very similar to your overview in an introduction, okay? You're just reviewing the main points. So in today's speech, I talked about my 3 favorite burgers: In-N-Out, Five Guys, and McDonald's. Okay, so just one sentence reviewing what you talked about in your speech. One thing that you could do in public speaking that is different from writing is that you could repeat. Repetition is good in public speaking. The more you repeat something, the more it stays in an audience's mind. So that's why we're constantly like stating and reviewing main points in a speech. Then the last thing you should do in your speech is end with a finality. So end memorably, right? Instead of saying that's it, or I'm done, or any questions. Think about any of the devices that you could use in your attention getter, like a quote or an illustration or a statement of fact to end your speech. I would say one good device is actually tying your conclusion back to your introduction. So for example, some people start with a story in their introduction and then they refer to that story in their finality. That's a good kind of brings it back whole, right? Now, if I use the metaphor once again of a hamburger, the top of the bun of a burger isn't really the best part. But think about if you didn't have that top bun, right? Your fingers would probably get messy. You'd probably drop a pickle here and there. It would feel a little bit sloppy eating the burger. So a solid conclusion like a burger bun just keeps things together and kind of ties all loose ends. Okay. So there we have it, introductions and conclusions using my metaphor of burgers. I hope I made you hungry, and I'm just curious, what is your favorite burger? So comment below.